So the application is working, but it's not really pretty. This instant snapping here, nah, we can animate this. So let's do that. I actually will use a simple transition as we learned it. So here I will add transition like this. And then for this transition, I want to set up a name. And the name is flip because I want to flip this. Now I could also dynamically bind this to some property if I wanted to switch the transition, and that could be a nice challenge for you to do. But here I will hard code it, and I will set the mode to out in so that the old component is first removed before the new one is animated in. Now of course, since I added flip here, I need to add a couple of CSS classes down there. Specifically, I need to have flip enter. But as a side note, of course, you don't need to have it if you don't enter any code then in there. I just want to show which classes we could use. Flip enter active. And then, of course, we also have flip leave. Whoops, like that. And, of course, also flip leave active, like this. These are the classes. And since I want to flip it, I will need some keyframes to use a CSS animation to do that. So here I will have flip out from and then to, let's say. Of course, you could be more granular by specifying in between steps, for example. And I will also have keyframes flip in like this. And here I also want to have simply from and to. Now, which animations do I want to set up here? Well, for flip out, I want to transform. And I want to rotate Y, so rotate around the Y axis, which is this animation, so not X, Y. Rotate Y, and initially I want to rotate it by 0 degrees, because I will start at having it, well, not rotated at all. Instead, having it really like this, not like this, not like this, really at 0 degrees. But I want to transform to rotate Y 90 degrees, so that it now is from this, switch to this. Now, of course, you want to do a full flip, and the other half will be done in flip in, because that should already be the new card, the new component. If I would animate the old card to do a full flip, well, then we would just see an empty background, a white or a gray background, and not the new card as a background. Therefore, the second half of the flip has to be done on the new component. Therefore, here for flip in, which will add the new one, we have to start at this point where the first one stops, so at 90 degrees. And we want to transform all the way to 0 degrees again, so that the new component which gets added in is now rotated fully towards you. I hope that makes sense. Rotate the old one out until it is exactly at 90 degrees, so almost invisible, so to say. And then if we would leave it to continue to 180%, we would see the backside of it, which is just some default gray color. Therefore, the backside should be the new component, which is why this takes over at 90 degrees. Well, with that animation set up here, let's see, what do we need to set here? Well, flip enter. This should be transform rotate Y 0 degrees, though we shouldn't need that because that is the starting state here and from. Therefore, we could remove the whole flip enter class. I'm just leaving it here so that again you see all the classes you could use. Flip enter active here. This is whilst the flip in animation plays. Well, this shall use the flip in animation over, let's say, half a second. Of course, choose any time frame of your choice or of your preference. I want to use the ease out easing function and forwards to stay in the final place and not snap back to the initial from state. Now for flip leave, we also want to transform rotate Y 0 degrees. Shouldn't be needed too though, so let's comment this out too. And flip leave active, well here I want to have my animation where I want to play flip out over half a second, ease out, and forwards as well, just like for flip enter active. Of course we could group them together, but I want to be explicit here. Now with that set up, let's see this in the running application. If I reload, that should be -2. It almost works, but we don't see the flip out, we only see it then flip in. But what's happening to the other part of the animation? Well, what's happening is that this should be called flip out here. So let's reload it again and try this again. Now it looks how it should look like. And if I give a wrong answer, like this one, I get a warning, and the right one flips it. So now with that, it's a small practice about animations. Now you could continue practicing by adding more animations here, or for example, go back to the Monster Slayer application, and on that, try to animate the list of the log we use there to log the player actions and so on. That could be animated with transition group. That would be a nice practice. In the next lecture, you will see my updated Monster Slayer code where I added these animations to that application for the group specifically. And then you can compare this, because this really is what I want to encourage you to do. Challenge my code and challenge yourself. And use the things you learn here, especially about animations, for example, and practice it in existing applications. Try to animate certain things and play around with it. With that, we achieved a lot. We learned a lot of the basics in this animations world or in the Vue.js world already. Now I want to move on to how we can leave the Vue.js app for a moment and reach out to some server if we need to fetch or store some data, something we haven't had a look at yet. So there we will have a look at how we can use HTTP in our Vue.js application.